morning, guys and girls. We want to welcome you back to another episode of the Real Chat Podcast. I am co-host Pastor Michael Thomas.
Justin Jackson.
All right. And we got a special topic for you today. We are talking about the devastation of parental alienation. Brother Justin, would you give them the definition of what that is exactly?
Definitely. So parental alienation is what we're talking about today. That refers to a condition in which the child of divorced parents or separated, significant others, doesn't matter what it is, feels an unwarranted and profound detachment and anger towards one of the parents. In parental alienation, this disengagement is caused by one parent making disparaging, derogatory comments about the other parent. So basically just trash talking the other parent.
Yeah, I think that's a terrible thing that happens far too often in the world, and we see the ripple effects that can come because of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Children
Sure.
despising one parent, maybe another parent having hatred towards the other parent, and then completely removing themselves from that child's life.
Yeah.
And there's studies and statistics that prove that children that grow up in single parent households are far more likely to get arrested, participate in drug use, or be sexually active at a younger age.
Yeah, and this is where we're having so many young mothers, so many young fathers, like you said, becoming sexually active. I guess they don't have that same structure, and I think that's also with a lot of young men, developing the way that we talk to women, just the way that we talk to our mothers,
Sure.
the things that, because I see a lot of young men that go out into public and they say a lot of derogatory things, but then they won't want to repeat them because these are things they would never say to their mother.
Right.
And a lot of that comes from what they see.
Absolutely.
What we see in the household is how we go out in the public.
No doubt.
And the parental alienation. The reason why we're bringing this up is because we asked for requests on things that people want to hear, that they want us to talk about, and I've been in multiple relationships where parental alienation has been a thing, and I've even been guilty of it myself before I could understand or be aware of how traumatizing that can be.
Sure.
In the future.
Absolutely. No, I've experienced it as a child myself, but then being a step parent, I've seen it where my stepdaughter's dad would say derogatory things about me and my wife, and I can say this: I always tried to never ever say anything negative about my stepdaughter's dad in her presence, because I felt that it would be wise to allow her to make up her own opinion. You know what I mean? So if he was late picking her up, or he didn't help her with school supplies or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever the situation was, I made sure that I wasn't influential in her creating her opinion about her dad.
And I think that's very important. That's very important because that's what happens. You have to let the kids figure out who that person is on their own.
Sure.
And I think that's a big thing. I had early on in one of my first relationships involving children, was my oldest daughter.
Okay.
Call her my daughter. She's not biologically mine, but love her just the same. And her father and I are really good friends. That's still one of my homies to this day. And the one thing that was never said to her was anything derogatory about her dad. I even went to the links of when he spent some time in prison, I would send her birthday gifts.
Oh, wow.
From him.
Okay.
So she gets an iPad or an iPod and she's wondering where it came from, and then finally, eventually she got older and she says, you know what? She was like, how did my dad send me all this stuff from prison? Well, that's because I wanted to make sure that she still had that connection
Sure.
with her dad. you
Okay.
know, and as she got older, you know, she made some choices and decisions on her own based on the life that he was living. But at the same time, now today, she's an adult, a young woman, and they have a very close relationship. You know, I watch them, I follow them on social media, and excuse me, you know, she just graduated UW Green Bay,
Okay.
and my lady, you know, gave her a nice gift for graduating.
Hmm.
Didn't have to do that, you know, but
Sure.
these are the things we do to try to foster that relationship, you know,
Absolutely.
instead of alienating each other, you know. And I think that something you could probably touch on is when you alienate the other parent, that can even go as far as sharing that parent's history
Sure.
without even thinking about it.
Right.
You know, if a parent went to prison or got in trouble or anything like that, these kids
Hmm.
might not be privy to it,
Right.
but now the other parents throwing it out there because they want that child to make a judgment call
Right.
based on what they're telling them.
Absolutely. No, it only tarnishes the perspective that that child may have of their parent. And the last thing that we need is kids respecting their parents less. You know, it's already
Mhm.
hard out here the way that the world is. You know what I mean? And for a young person to not have a healthy respect for their parents only sets them up for failure. You know,
Yeah.
it's the parents that are invested and love their kids and sacrifice and do whatever, and we don't want to raise spoiled, entitled, selfish individuals who,
Ungrateful,
yeah,
you know, and you said it because when you tell kids these things, they develop this picture in their head, but eventually what they're going to do to the parent that is taking care of them, that
hmm,
is being the supportive one in their life, they begin to lash out and disrespect them
sure,
based off of things they're hearing about
what
their
they're seeing,
past or
yeah,
what they're seeing.
right,
You know, and it's like how do you disrespect the person who does the most for you
absolutely,
because you weren't trained any better, you
right.
weren't taught any better.
Right. No, you know, it's so hard to be a parent, period. You know, there's no blueprint. And we've seen throughout history, there's individuals who have both parents at home, and they might be in the middle to upper class. And this, you know, but how they're raised has them not respectful of their parents and not respectful of anyone, you
Right.
know. And so it's hard trying to raise a child at multiple children at that, especially being single. You know, if there's a parent that wants to be in their child's life, you really should encourage that relationship and help strengthen that relationship so that the men can be better fathers, the mothers can be better mothers, and then just
Mhm.
taking some responsibility off of your hands, because we're in it together, you know.
For sure, we're all in it together. And for anybody out there that is going through any type of parental alienation, um, just think of it this way. You know, it is a type of abuse. You
Mm,
know, it is a type of child abuse. You know, so it is neglecting your child by talking derogatory about their father, their mother, anything like that. It affects them, and it doesn't only affect the child, but it affects that parent. You know, it
sure.
affects that parent, and that parent can't move forward and do better. Which we're all trying to grow. We're trying to learn every day, do new things, try new things. I mean, whether it's addiction, recovery, whatever it is, and whatever path you're following,
Yeah,
it's hard to do that when someone's constantly slandering you, when
sure.
someone's constantly trying to knock you down. You know,
Yeah,
I think you said it last week when you know you get knocked back, it's for that giant leap forward.
yeah,
It's kind of hard to do that when somebody's putting a wall in front of you.
absolutely. And no, to put it in a spiritual perspective, I always say you reap what you sow. You know, so if you try to sow seeds to discourage your child from connecting and building with the other parent, you know what? It's going to come back to bite you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the way that the picture that you paint the other parent, it'll mess around, and the child will look at you as the bad guy. You know what I mean?
Right, right. I mean, for any of the parents out there, you know, that's on the receiving end of this, make sure you take detailed notes. records, record everything, write it down, make sure that you keep track record. You got to keep that paper trail open so that if it does come a time where you need to step up and take your child out of this situation, you have records of that.
Sure.
And I think that's very important. It's not about I'm keeping proof from what you're doing. What it's doing is protecting yourself. If you're trying to move forward and do the right thing and keep getting knocked backwards, then you need to keep a record of that.
Right. Yeah. No, I've being a pastor, I've had a ton of conversations with individuals who share their hurt and frustration, not being able to be in their child's life as often as they want. And I say, if you're in that situation, the wisest thing to do is to go back to court. You know what I mean? Like, and fight for your rights. And never give up being able to be in your child's life. I've heard of people that gave up their rights completely.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the best thing to do, because then that child could possibly feel abandonment.
I think and I think that's possibly, that brings into like mental health issues, and these are mental health issues that we don't see on a surface level. But when you're constantly getting knocked down by child support, you're constantly getting slandered, you just getting talked about, eventually sometimes you feel like it might be the best route to sign off. And why am I going to keep dealing with this when I don't get to get my kid anyways?
Yeah.
I get minimal time with them. I'm paying out the ass, for child support, and I still don't get to see them.
Right.
I might as well just sign off. Sometimes that's the easy way, and
Sure.
I think we talked about that a lot. We should have brought that up last week with the road less traveled.
Right.
That's taking the easy way out. So
sure.
Me personally, I wouldn't do that, but I, on a personal level, have thought about it. This is something that I've thought about, and this is something that can like really affect the parent.
Right.
Like, am I making the right decision? And it gets crazy, but that's mental health, if you don't have somebody to talk to about it, and just reach out and say, hey, just get all your ducks in a row.
Sure.
Work the blueprint.
Right.
Follow the path,
Yeah. No, man, I heard there was a young man who took his life a couple years back because he wasn't getting to be in his child's life as often as he wanted. The last thing a child needs is less of their parent. You know what I mean? Like, I tell people all the time that are like considering divorce, like, you being in your child's life 50-50 is not the best situation. It'd be great if you and your significant other could work it out. And both of you can be there 100, but a dad or a mom only getting to see their child every other weekend is not beneficial to that child. Like,
no, it creates a gap.
Right.
It creates that space. And I think one of the things that I was reading up on this subject was that, one of the main topics you can bring to a judge is to tell them that you're not creating that bond with your child, because what you're doing is creating that wedge. So now you only get them every other weekend, or for the summer, a couple weeks out of the summer,
Sure.
And I know it gets kind of hard. It gets very difficult on parents that don't live in the same county or in the same area.
Right.
So if you're 2 hours away, it doesn't make sense to have my kid go to school halftime there and go to school halftime here.
Yeah.
Because now they're not getting that socialization within school.
Sure.
They're not socializing with the kids now.
Right.
But I just think that we just got to do better, just try to co-parent and just do better as parents. And nonetheless, as adults.
Absolutely.
Like, we're not children, we're not teenagers, we're not kids. And I think that's a big problem. It almost turns out to be a bunch of kids trying to raise kids.
Right.
Because that's what you're doing, is acting like a bunch of kids.
Yeah. There has to be some type of compromise. You know what I mean? Like, you have to put aside your somewhat best interest and what you believe is the best way, and work together with the other parent, even if they're totally opposite. You know what I mean? Like, myself and my wife, we're Christians, and we try to raise our home and our children to love the Lord. And my stepdaughter, her dad, doesn't have the same viewpoints and way of life that we do, and but we don't try to force anything or say
Mhm.
like, hey, you got to conduct yourself and your home has to be like our home. We just make the best of our relationship with
Right.
our daughter and try to instill the best things that we possibly can and not try to keep up with the Joneses. Oh, because he took her to the water park, now we got to take her to the
We gotta go on a
roller
bigger
coaster.
vacation.
Yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, no, we're going to do what we do on a regular basis.
Mhm.
And you know what I mean? And hopefully she sees and appreciates our heart and our love
You
for
got to keep
her.
setting the bar.
Exactly.
You got to keep raising the bar.
Be
And that's
consistent.
just consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency and open communication.
Right.
I think that a lot of times, on the other end of the spectrum, you get parents that they they want to micromanage.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of letting the kid grow and develop a relationship with that other parent,
Right.
you want to micromanage the conversation.
Yeah.
You want to step in and constantly have the kid where they're looking up and looking away, because they can't even establish that eye contact with you because they're feeling guilty or ashamed of
Mm-hmm.
what the other parent's going to think.
Right.
They might think I love him more or I love her more.
Sure.
Am I saying the right thing? I don't want to get them in trouble. But when you put this type of burden on a child,
right,
they take this burden into their life, to their adulthood.
Yeah.
And then they start to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
And,
They might
and I
want
just
to
don't understand where
communicate with you and tell you their true feelings in fear that they might offend you, and upset you. And now they might be talking to the wrong person about their feelings.
Right. I mean, I heard one parent say it the best, so the conversation was whether or not the child was going to get moved somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, look, if my child wants to go live there and makes that decision, I'm moving next door.
Sure.
I'll be moving next door, and I think that's a big part in it. Like you said, it's got to be a compromise.
Right.
So maybe I might not want to move closer or to the same area, but we're going to try to make this work.
You got to be on the same page.
Exactly. You got to be on the same page. Not, I'm going to take my kids and move out of the country. Okay, well, how am I ever going to see them?
Yeah.
What kind of sense does that make? You know, well, I have dreams and goals. Okay. Like, I want to see you achieve your dreams and goals.
Yeah.
But my dreams and goals are to have a relationship with my child.
Sure. Absolutely.
And now you're taking that from me.
Right.
So I think, parental alienation is a big thing that's less talked about.
Well, I don't know if it's less talked about. It might need to be revised and how we operate here in America. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think all over the country we see a what's the word? Disparagement or disparaging results from children being with their fathers, and there's like a great gap. You know what I mean? And I don't know how it is in every state, but far often in the state of Wisconsin, the mother is always the preferred home in which the child stays in. And sometimes there's mothers that might be on welfare. And I'm not trying to stereotype anything, but I'm just putting out there some truths that have come to light.
Those are hard facts.
Right.
It's facts, because you see too many times where I think what it is the U.S. needs to get on the same page. You can't have certain laws in this state and then certain laws in another state.
Sure.
Child support relates to this state in a type of way, because I know in some states they don't even go after them.
Okay.
Like, this person don't pay child support for nothing, and they getting away with it. And then you look at Wisconsin, where you miss a payment, they on
you're
top
going to
of
jail.
You
can get extradited. Let's say you live in Texas, and you fall behind in your child support. I've heard of men being extradited from Texas. They go all the way to Texas and bring you back to Wisconsin, put you in jail. Now you're not working, and now that bill has grown even more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But the crazy part is you could have a drug charge in Wisconsin and be in Florida, and they won't come get you.
Yeah.
They won't come get you for that weed charge or something, but they will come get you for child support.
Okay.
And I was also just listening. I listen to Sway
You
in
can
the
tell I
morning,
don't
right?
know.
So listen, I listen to Sway in the morning, right? So
Yeah.
I'm listening to Sway in the morning the other day, and they were talking about people getting their passports, right? So I never had a passport,
Okay.
but they were talking about people getting their passports and coming to find out that you may not be able to travel, whether you have a passport or not, if you're not current on your child support.
Oh wow.
And it depends on state to state. I think in like New York and some other states, if you have like $2,200 in arrears, you ain't going nowhere. You can't travel.
Man.
You can't even get a passport.
Yeah.
And it's starting to get to the point in some states they revoke your license. So now how are you supposed to get to work and be able to work a job if you can't even drive your car to get there?
Yeah.
Because you fell behind in child support. And they don't care what the reason is why you fall behind. And like you were saying about locking you up over that, I've been in that situation before where they would threaten me with my older kids.
Oh wow.
Well, you better make a payment or we're going to put you in jail. So I would get up in front of the judge and tell him and say, hey, so now you're taking me away from my kids.
Yeah.
Now you're going to take me away from them, but you're saying that I'm not there in the first place because I'm not paying you.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing, that I disagree with, is because, I know it's just a going off, but yeah. So.
Yeah, no, I think we might need to revisit that. And I mean, maybe there needs to be some laws in place where it's reconstructed and made, a little bit more fair and equitable for both sides, the mom and the dad. I think I mentioned it in a past episode that even when I was at my worst as a young man, an individual, I never wanted my children to experience what I did as a child. And so like I had my mind made up, like if I ever get a girl pregnant, I'm gonna do my best to be with her and love her so I can be with my child every single day. And man, there was some close calls where I thought, I thought I might have got a girl pregnant, but I dodged the bullet, and I was fortunate to be able to have children with the woman who I'm married to now, and we can provide our children something that I never had growing up.
And that's what it's all about. I mean, trying to rewrite the narrative.
Sure.
You got to rewrite the narrative. You got to set the bar, for what we want this next generation to be. And, raising up these topics, that's what Real Chat's all about.
For sure.
I mean, that's why we get on here and we talk about these things because a lot of times these are things people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
So. No,
you sometimes we got to challenge a person's thought process, you know what I mean? And get them to consider how they might be living their lives or reconsider how they're living their lives and their thought process. You know what I mean? Because I hope that those that are watching may take in these viewpoints and know that they're not coming from a biased perspective, but always from a healthy and helpful viewpoint of things. Would you agree?
Definitely. I mean, again, that's why we do Real Chat. Righteous education about life.
Right.
That's what the realness is about it, to raise these topics and raise awareness.
Absolutely.
If you don't know, you don't know.
No doubt about it. And righteous, that really just stands for being in a right standing to do things in an honorable fashion, and I'm not perfect and no man is. And I know that everybody makes mistakes, but if we can help people prevent mistakes, especially when it comes to raising their children, we can possibly turn this world around.
Right. Well, I mean, and again, it's about raising awareness and educating. Educating ourselves through the process. A lot of these topics and things that we talk about, I have to dive in and research. Because I don't really know.
Sure.
I mean, I think I had a question for you last night, that popped up, and that was from my aunt, my auntie down in Kansas, reached out to me and she asked me, what was it? The guy named Adam,
Sure.
So here we are researching while we while we on the phone talking to each other,
Yeah.
and that's part of real chat. I mean, it's righteous education about life, and we have to educate ourselves as we go through life.
No doubt. You know what's so important about this subject when it comes to kids? Like, okay, you could look at it and be like, hey, I'm doing my best to take care of my kids at home. But you know what? Not everybody else is. And so my
Mhm.
kids are going to be interacting with other kids
Right.
who might be coming from a broken home and everything's not as it should be, and they can have an influence on my kids, and so that's why we need to be influential over other parents, influential
Yeah.
over other kids. You know what I'm saying? Like I've invited kids to come into the house and hang out and play with my kids and sit down and talk to them in the neighborhood
Mhm.
and be I won't say like a fatherly figure, but at least a good example. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, you said it, and that's definitely being a fatherly example.
Okay, sure.
Because maybe these kids don't have a father at home.
Yeah.
They don't know how to react around another man,
Hmm.
and they don't know how another man is supposed to react
They don't
around
know what it
them.
looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. They don't know what it looks like. Because I know I used to. I went to a couple homes when I was younger, hanging out with friends, and some of them had fathers that really cared.
Hmm.
And me not having a father, I really looked up to that.
Yeah.
I was like, man, dude, like, and then when I see these kids misbehaving and doing the things they doing, I'm like, man, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, I don't even, you lucky.
Sure.
I mean, you go missing with me for a couple hours and they out here driving around looking for you.
Right.
I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't have a man out here, hey, you see my son?
Mhm.
Like I don't have that.
Right.
So I mean, I think it is setting that example, whether, and that's what we are. Once we become men, we are fathers of the community.
Yeah, to
We
a
are fathers
degree.
of the community.
Yeah.
That's what we got to be. We got to be out here talking and ministering, whatever it takes to get the message to these
Holding
young
each other
adults.
accountable.
Exactly. And hold each other accountable. If you can be a real man and go to another man's house and say, hey, the way you probably came out here yelling or the way you handled, I mean, I wouldn't say just run up on somebody telling them how to parent.
You can have
But
a
when you can have that heart-to-heart conversation
Mhm.
and say, hey, man, your son comes over to my house or your daughter comes over to our house,
Right.
and this is how they act.
Mhm.
You know what's going on, and this is how you build that relationship within the
Sure.
community.
How can I assist you?
Correct.
How can I bless you guys so that you guys are, in the best space that you can possibly be?
Mhm.
Because I tell you this, I came across another study, and 100% of youth that witness domestic violence experience some form of trauma to a certain degree.
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
It affects every single child, boy, girl, regardless of age, if they witness domestic violence in any type of form.
It influences their life.
Yeah, it influences their
Tremendously.
life. So whether you just are verbally abusive,
Mhm.
mentally and emotionally abusive,
Narcissistic.
and especially physically, it can lead to your child possibly being abusive or accepting abuse,
Mhm.
just because this is something that they've witnessed and experienced.
Right. Well, and that goes to say where, like I said, I was always a firm believer, a hard head makes a soft ass. All right.
Mhm.
But it also shows that, the physical, if you're getting beat through your childhood and you're watching your mother or your father get physically abused, it becomes you become immune to it.
Right, numb.
It doesn't affect you anymore.
Sure.
So you still, because I know I got whoopings bad,
Mhm.
and I still went to school and still acted a fool.
Yeah.
So it had no effect. Because if those ass whoopings had an effect,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have been going to school doing what I was doing.
Sure.
I would have been like, yeah, I'm good. Nope. But no, I got right up and went back to school and did the same thing. And my mom's like, oh, yeah, I got a phone call today. She lying. They lying, but I already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Here I go doing something else later on that day to get the same result.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just being leaders in the community and being fathers out here doesn't relate just to your initial home.
Absolutely.
No,
I mean, I know that you've spoken about how you had an outside source, a male positive influence in your life who spoke life into you and
Hmm.
encouraged you and set a good example. You know what I mean? And I've had individuals come into my life. You know, my aunt and uncle were influential for me as a young man, and my grandparents helped raise me as
Hmm.
well. You know, when my
Takes a
dad and my
village.
mom wasn't there, yeah, you know what I mean. And so, praise God for those who come into uh, families, structures, and just are there to benefit that family. You know.
Definitely, definitely. So who do we got for we like to do these resources and get the resources out there to the community, out to the public. So what do we
Sure.
got for them today?
Yeah, I got two resources. Both of them are regarding uh, places that you can go in Sheboygan. One, Open Door. It's typically a place that people with mental health are free to come in and hang out. To pass the time and be able to connect with other resources in the community. And that's located
I
on
like
8th
that.
Street. And then Pay It Forward is a place where people who may be dealing with homelessness can go and hang out. It's not a 24-hour shelter, but it is a place where people can go from maybe 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., get
Hmm.
a warm meal, and hang out and do activities and also connect with other resources throughout the day.
Oh yeah, I see they're
Sure.
very active, and I definitely support that. For any of you educators out there, teachers, principals, things like that, I want to just share a resource, which is J. Casas and Associates. They can help you out through corporations, trainings, workshops, anything you need to better assist these young adults. You know that we want to build up so that we can champion for them when they get out into the real world.
Right.
Also, because I got my official certification for peer specialist. I want to shout out to the Wisconsin Peer Support Employment Initiative.
Congratulations.
Definitely, thank you, thank you. So you can find them at www.wicps. So if you're ever interested in stepping up into a leadership role and being able to help share your experiences and help others. So
Right on. Hey, man, I think that this was a great chat, and I hope that it was beneficial for all of you that might be in a situation or know somebody that's in a situation. Hopefully, you can pass on some of this advice or share this link. And if you have any more questions or topics that you would like us to talk about, don't be afraid to mention that.
yes, DM us. I mean, you can find Pastor Michael Thomas. What's your information again?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's Minister and Coach. On TikTok, it's at Pastor Mike Coach Thomas. And on Twitter, it's at Pastor Coach Mike.
Definitely, and you can find the real chat full episode on the YouTube at Real Chat Podcast. Justin Jackson on Facebook. You can find me Justin Jackson 331 on Instagram and at Justin Jackson 133 on TikTok. So definitely.
With that being said, we want to thank you and hope you all have a blessed time.
Definitely.